So we have another great game taking place on Saturday. Ole Miss is taking on Arkansas. They're going down to Fayetteville. QB battle there. Jackson Dart, Taylor Green, real dogs right there in that game. So, what are your thoughts when it comes to the Ole Miss Arkansas matchup?
Yeah, Arkansas is coming off of a huge game. They, beat up on Mississippi State last week pretty bad. I think this will be their hardest game to date on both sides of the ball. I think right now where Ole Miss's defense is sitting is going to pose the biggest threat to what Arkansas's offense has done this point in the season. They had 10 sacks last week, Ole Miss did, and they're good at stopping the quarterback run. They held Jackson Arnold to an abysmal rushing percentage. They did the same thing against Lenora Sellers. And here, I think what Arkansas is going to have to do is be a little bit more comfortable in the pocket throwing the ball. I think it poses an interesting game that if Arkansas can rise to the occasion like they did last week, they can definitely take this one. But if they get down on themselves and let Ole Miss control the narrative in the game, it could be different.
Yeah, no, it definitely could be a different game, and and in the same vein that you think that this could be the toughest game for Ole Miss when it comes to an opponent, or for Arkansas. Sorry, you said Arkansas. They played LSU, obviously a tough game for them. Ole Miss played LSU pretty close, and so I think that there's that holds some truth. On the other side for Ole Miss, this is the most mobile quarterback they've played against. Obviously, Jackson Arnold is capable of running. Taylor Green's coming off a game averaging 9.9 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns in the game. That could pose a challenge to this Ole Miss defense, which is proven to be top 5 defensively in the conference, rushing defense wise, but has not faced the likes of a mobile quarterback of Taylor Green to date.
Yeah, and that's a good asterisk there. That like the quarterbacks that were running before that they were stopping are definitely not as good as what Taylor Green can offer. What he did last week, if anyone listened to our last episode, he was really good at getting to his tight ends, which is always a successful thing for mobile quarterbacks. With Ole Miss, though, they do have some good linebackers. It's going to be, up to this Ole Miss team to contain him and try to figure out ways to stop that. On the other side of the ball, Trey Harris is questionable. For Arkansas, I just want to make a note: Jaquinton Jackson is expected to play. It's still up in the air, but Trey Harris is questionable in this one. It didn't really matter to Ole Miss last week. And we know that Arkansas's defense can show us anything on any given week. We might see lights out performance. We might see them lapse a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what Ole Miss can do in the air. Should Trey Harris not be able to go, do they play like they did last week against Oklahoma, or do we see them struggle a little bit more?
Yeah, it'll definitely be really interesting. I mean, if they are able to get Trey Harris to play in this game, you talked about the Arkansas defense. We don't really know fully what we'll get. And so there's obviously guys like TJ Metcalf who are able to force turnovers, but Jackson Dart's been doing pretty well from protecting the football for the most part. And so it'll be definitely an interesting one for Arkansas. Having Jaquinton Jackson back probable wise is helpful, but we saw Braylon Russell last week was able to fill in there and kind of carry the load. And I mean, overall, this is just a tough football team, right? You put BJ Singleton in, he gets a touchdown at quarterback. You put Braylon Russell in, he's able to score as well. The record for Arkansas, in some ways, I think doesn't indicate how good they are, given how close they've been in every game this season besides LSU. On the other side with Ole Miss, I feel like when I watch their games, it feels like the teams they're playing against, whether they're superior or inferior, are kind of able to hang around. I haven't seen like a dominant win. The Oklahoma game was a good win, but it didn't feel like we've seen dominance. And so it makes me think that Arkansas can kind of hang in this game similar to their Texas A&M Arkansas game this season.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Ole Miss last week didn't look as dominant as they should have. They were 20-point favorites going into that game, not box score watching, but a team like that, Ole Miss at a spot where you're 6-2 on the season, you want to blow that game open, win with style points. You don't want to be hanging around with an Oklahoma team. No. Arkansas in this one now at home, it could paint a recipe for a game that Ole Miss would lose. For me, if I'm looking at Arkansas and what they need to do to be successful in this game, I think it is throwing the ball. Like they have the rushing attack, they have the quarterback mobility and extending plays. I think you need to spread the ball around, get it to your receivers, work out of the pocket. That's what's worked against Ole Miss at this point in the season is effective passing. They're great at sacks, they're great at getting to the quarterback, but when they can sit in the pocket and deliver, teams have been able to move the ball against Ole Miss. So if Arkansas can do that, even if the running is inefficient, which it might be, it
Yep.
gives them opportunity to score points.
Definitely can give them the opportunity to score points, and from a running back position battle, they win here, right? Henry Parrish is
Yeah.
solid, but Jaquindon Jackson and the addition of Braylon Russell wins in that side. The quarterback battle, I would say Dart wins that, but I feel like it's a Taylor Green is just we're waiting for that game where he blows up on the big spotlight. They won Tennessee. He played good. It wasn't all the way his game, but it's like it could be that game for him. For Dart,
Mhm.
we're kind of waiting for that game as well, right? He played really good against South Carolina. Obviously, he played pretty good against LSU, but that was in a loss. So it's like, who's going to have that big game? To me, that's kind of what I'm wondering. And I think in this game, I think Arkansas wins. I'm not saying Taylor Green has that big game, but I do think Arkansas wins. They play Arkansas team football. It won't be like by a large margin. I'm going to say 28-24, really close. But I like Arkansas in this one.
Okay, we're pretty close here. I like Arkansas to win as well, 28-27, maybe a late touchdown to pull away. Ole Miss, if they can stop him from extending plays, they have excellent pass rushers. They have great linebackers and support. If they don't let him kill them in extending plays, they could put this one away. I do think right now he's riding too much of a high and wants to win this one. So I like Arkansas.